Just before this BBC podcast gets underway, here's something you may not know. My name's Linda Davies, and I commission podcasts for BBC Sounds. As you'd expect, at the BBC we make podcasts of the very highest quality, featuring the most knowledgeable experts and genuinely engaging voices. What you may not know is that the BBC makes podcasts about all kinds of things, like pop stars, poltergeists, cricket, and conspiracy theories, and that's just a few examples. If you'd like to discover something a little bit unexpected, find your next podcast over at BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello there, and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, delivering all the news, views and analysis you need to kickstart your working week. As we record, it's the evening of Sunday the 14th of April. I'm Liam McLeod. A possible key weekend in the Premiership at both ends of the table.
Sims, goal! Ross County are in absolute dreamland here!
Well, after Ross County make history, Rangers stumble and Celtic come alive, what does it all mean for the title race? And
Tony, job done. Congratulations.
Thank you. Enormously proud of the group of players. They deserve every plaudit they get coming their way.
with Dundee securing their top six place, should Tony Docherty be in contention for Manager of the Year? And is the pressure mounting on Montgomery?
This is the Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Yes, it's been quite some weekend. I'm joined today by Richard Foster, former Aberdeen, Rangers, Ross County, St Johnstone. I could go on, but I'm not going to because we've only got so much time. And I've got Pat Nevin as well, DJ, pundit and accidental footballer with me as well. And it's brilliant to have you both on the podcast for this edition. How are we?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. It's been a busy weekend, I have to say. Pat, what have you been up to this weekend?
Well, I had to nip down to the Newcastle game. They were playing against Spurs, and I wanted to see the most recent version of Ange Ball. Well, Ange burst his ball this week. It was absolutely awful. I couldn't believe how bad Spurs played. But intriguing stuff going down. But looking at all around the UK just now, there's some great title races, and certainly the English Premier League's good. The WSL's good down there. But our league up here, honestly, it's just brilliant. And it's going to have a few surprises. And I think that's what we'll talk about.
Absolutely. Richard, obviously a disappointing outcome in the end for Motherwell. Made that late run, of course you're on the staff there, made that late run for a possible top six place. It would have been a phenomenal achievement. Unfortunately for you guys, it was a late goal, which was a stunning goal, actually, but a draw not enough.
No, and I think we just gave ourselves that a little bit too much to do. I think that the run we went on in the middle part of the season, when we failed to pick up a win in quite a few games, I think we were always an outside chance. When you're having to rely on other teams to do you a favour, it's never great, especially when you're, unfortunately for you, Liam, having to rely on Aberdeen to win at home. It was never going to help us. But no, we didn't manage to do our own job anyway. We only drew with Hibs. So disappointing, but I think over the piece, to get ourselves back into contention for the top six, albeit a slim hope, I think the manager and the players deserve huge credit for the kind of turnaround from that midpoint in the season.
Well, as ever, we've got loads to get through with Richard and Pat. But firstly, as we always do early on in the podcast, let's quickly blast through the latest Scottish football headlines. Well, Ross County made history and delivered a huge blow to Rangers' Premiership title ambitions by coming from behind to secure their first ever win over the Ibrox club. Of course, gives them a shot in the arm in their survival battle. The 3-2 victory means that Celtic remain 4 points clear at the top of the table after they beat St Mirren 3-0 on Saturday. There was drama in the battle for that final place in the top half. Just talking about it there, the late equaliser for Motherwell against Hibs meant Dundee's goalless draw at Aberdeen was enough for them to secure 6th spot as it stands. Elsewhere, Hearts beat Livingston 4-2 at Tynecastle, while Kilmarnock won 2-0 against St Johnstone in Perth. In the Championship, Arbroath's relegation was confirmed following a 5-0 annihilation at Ayr United, while Raith Rovers now find themselves 6 points behind the leaders Dundee United after drawing 0-0 with Partick Thistle United, of course, with that impressive victory at Capello on Friday. And in the SWPL, Rangers remain a point ahead of Celtic after both teams recorded convincing victories over the champions Glasgow City and Partick Thistle, respectively. Well, let's start with events in Dingwall. As I said, we're recording on Sunday evening, so we're just a few hours after full time in what was a seismic result for all kinds of reasons in the Premiership. Richard, firstly, obviously a League Cup winner with Ross County. It's a club you hold dear to your heart. You played for Rangers over a couple of spells too, so you're well placed to discuss this one. How big a surprise was that? Don Cowie, unbeaten at home as county manager, but just a couple of wins over the last, I think, 18 matches. And a massive win for them, as much as it was a huge defeat for Rangers.
Yeah, I think in terms of when you see the fixture coming up, it's a huge surprise. Obviously, you expect Rangers to go up there on the back of, kind of coming back into the Old Firm game, getting that point late on. You expect them to kind of really kick into gear and go and win quite convincingly. But when I watched the game, the result wasn't a surprise. Ross County were the better side. They moved the ball really quickly. Rangers really failed to deal with the front three of County on the break. And I thought it was a real poor performance from Rangers and one that I didn't expect. But in terms of as a on the Motherwell staff, we're obviously wanting Rangers to win and keep Ross County down there. But full credit to the players and Don Cowie, because fantastic result, fantastic performance, and obviously they'll go into this post-split fixtures now with full confidence. For Rangers, it's now they need to go to Celtic Park and win. It's not something that's easy, not something that's been done by many. And they've, from being in control of the league title, they've now kind of put themselves on the back foot.
Pat, just on County, because obviously Rangers losing is going to dominate a lot of headlines, but County have done their hopes of staying in the division again this season a whole lot of good by picking up what I would imagine even Don Cowie in his private moments would admit were 3 bonus points today.
Yes, to some degree, but I'm with Richard. I have to say, I thought there was periods at the game. I thought Ross County were brilliant. And if you look at the quality of the goals, I mean, coming in for the left a couple of times, the 47th and the 50th, something like that, it was right after half-time. I mean, you'll think about the periods of a season. There are 1 or 2 periods where your jaw hits the floor. It was one of them. It absolutely was one of those periods. And then when the third one goes in, you just, wow, is this happening? But it was the quality of the way they played out. Now, Rangers fans can be shouting and bawling correctly, saying, wait a minute, have you looked at things like some of the other stats? Is it 17 corners to 3 in their favour? And obviously they had a lot more possession, etc. But you're going to get that against the Celtic and Rangers. It's how you deal with the possession you've got. And I thought they were brilliant with it, and certainly the goals were different class, and the defending was outrageous. It was just they were throwing their bodies in front of everything. And the thing I would say about Rangers, in the first half of the game against Celtic, which I was at, they didn't show imagination, which I expected a bit more from them. They didn't play well in that game, but the lack of imagination. And maybe in this game that was the problem. Get your corners, lump it in there, charge, etc. But sophistication, something clever and quiet, like the neat little 1-2s that Ross County were playing for their goals, maybe that was missing. And that in the end might be the thing that cost them the title.
No, absolutely. They've only won 2 of their last 7. It's not the time of the campaign that you want to be hitting that kind of slump. We'll focus on Rangers in a moment, because I think it's important to emphasise, and I worked on the game today, so I'm totally with what the guys are saying about how much Ross County deserved the victory. I think Josh Sims got the sponsors man of the match. Simon Murray got the league's man of the match for the game. Any one of them really could have got it. Jack Baldwin, I think, put himself on the line on countless occasions, and he bounced back brilliantly, because obviously it was his own goal that gave Rangers the lead. It was as good a performance, Richard, as I've seen from Ross County this season, and it's given them some real belief, I would have thought, going into matches against inferior opposition, let's be honest, in the post-split fixtures.
Yeah, I know, it's the biggest cliche in football. Everyone talks about momentum, don't they? Always, who's got the momentum, where's it going now? To beat Rangers the game before the league splits, I said the game before the last game before the league splits, obviously with that game on Wednesday, but for Ross County it's a huge result, massive kind of momentum shifter, that, and I've played in games where you nick results and you don't really deserve it. But, we've just been discussing there how well Ross County played. That would, of course, the 3 points is the be-all and end-all. It's the business at the end of the season. You need to win points to stay in the league. But the level of performance, if Don Kelly gets that level of performance for the next 5 games, then Ross County will win more games than they lose, and they'll comfortably stay in the league. Obviously, that's not a given, and I think Ross County's issue this season has been the fluctuation in terms of the performance level. But if I'm a Ross County fan, if I'm in that Ross County dressing room, if I'm Don Cowie, I'm looking at all these pleasing aspects going, we've just beaten, albeit not at 100%, but it's still a good Rangers side. They're still full of quality. They're still a team that up until that point were kind of odds-on favourites to probably go and win the title. So it's a huge performance against a good side, and that can only give them confidence. And like I say, you take that level of performance into games against teams in the bottom 6, and they give themselves a real good chance. I think we were discussing it before. If you look at the league table now, they're a point behind St Johnstone. They're 5 points behind Aberdeen. They play either one of those teams in the first round of the split fixtures, and they managed to win that. And, it could be chaos in that bottom 6.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's lots to look forward to. Perhaps not look forward to is the right expression when it comes to supporters of clubs who are embroiled in that battle to try and avoid the playoff. It does look like Livingston are gone, especially now after that today. It's now only a matter of time for them. Pat, for Rangers, there was so much wrong today. From back to front, okay, Jack Butland's made a few good saves, but they just didn't look like a team chasing a title today, did they?
Yeah, and there could be a number of reasons for it. They'd been on a phenomenal run. Since Clement took over, there had been a phenomenal run. They'd been really good, apart from the game against Celtic, right? So you think, okay, you're going to have a blip now and again, a difficult time now and again, but they didn't seem to move the ball quickly. Sometimes sometimes this time of the season, you look at the pitch, is it a bit claggy or a bit slow? You can't zip it across the ground. You make excuses in those sort of ways. But it didn't seem to stop Ross County. They seem to be doing okay and playing that.
I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah. So you can't really use that as an excuse. There's nothing, I'm saying there's nothing wrong with the pitch. And it's a good pitch to play on. So you're looking at other possibilities, other reasons for it. The Rangers had lifted themselves so incredibly for the second half of the Old Firm game. That might be something as well. But now and again, you get a bad day at the office. It happens. You need to be able to pick yourself up. Now, I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, right? But I've not heard anyone say it, but everyone will say this phrase. Rangers have still got it in their own hands. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Nothing more than that. And that's the weirdness of this league, isn't it? You can still say that. So if they win their game in hand...
But they need to win at Celtic Park now, Pat. That's the change. You would think they will need to now win at Celtic Park. Of course, Ross County have proven the other teams can take points off Celtic and Rangers this season. Other sides have done it this season, Kilmarnock and Hearts perhaps most notably. But what it has done is it's piled the pressure on Rangers to now, in all likelihood, they're going to have to go to Celtic Park and pick up a victory. And that's easier said than done.
Well, I'm happy you changed the phrase to all likelihood. Because it might not be necessary to win at Celtic Park. If you're Hearts fans and you're Kelly fans and St Mirren fans, you'll be saying, yeah, what about us? We might do the business, so you just never know.
Well, Hearts are the only team that have beaten Celtic, I think, over the last 17, 18 games. So, yeah.
And you could bat stats forward and back. I mean, when's the last time Ross County beat Rangers? Never, right? So your stats, they kind of don't work. When you come to the end of the season, you put pressure on. Unexpected things can happen. It happens with players, it happens with teams, it happens all the time at the end of the season. It's how you can actually cope with that. So, look, Celtic are favourites. You're 100% right, Liam. And no one's going to argue with that just now. But Celtic had their little problems, obviously, at the weekend as well. Looked a bit shaky in that first half. But Rangers, if you say to any player, Richard, you back me up or don't, it's up to you, mate. But if you say you've got it in your hands between the end of the season, 9 times out of 10, I'll take that. I'll take that. Okay, it's going to be tough. But it's in our hands. I'm having it.
100%. I spoke about it with us, Aberdeen. We needed Aberdeen to beat Dundee, and you never want that as a player, as a manager, because there's so many unknowns that you can't control. What you can control and what Rangers can control is their own performance. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult to go to Celtic Park, but you're right. They do still have it in their own hands to go and win the league. But I just think Celtic have been in this position before. They've been over the course. They're good front runners. That was maybe what Rangers lacked. They weren't used to being in that position. I think it's always easier being the chasing team. But I think Celtic are very good front runners, and I do expect them to go on and kind of dominate and win the league. But such as Scottish football, and that's why we all love it and talk about it. You just never know.
You just never know at either end of the table right now. Just finally on this one, before we have a look back at Saturday's action, it's Dundee Rangers on Wednesday at the moment, scheduled for Dens Park. We'll probably get clarity on that. I think Tuesday they're going to make the final decision as to whether the pitch is playable. Will it move to Perth or Paisley? We don't know yet as we record this. I think everyone hopes it's going to be at Dens. Maybe Rangers don't, given the state of the pitch there. It might be an extremely difficult fixture for them, even if it was a bowling green surface, given how well Dundee have done this season. We're going to have a look at them shortly, having secured top 6. But Pat, this is a difficult fixture again for Rangers. And Dundee come into this in as good a mentality as they could possibly want to be in.
Well, and the great thing being, they're there. They're there. So the pressure's off. They've got it there. Mm-hmm. This is the classic shot to nothing. They may as well go out, enjoy yourself, play the game with the celebrations after the weekend there were understandable. You've got 2 top 6. That is a big thing to celebrate, I think, for Dundee. So you've got an extra game in hand to just go and enjoy it. So yeah, players often play far better when they're enjoying their game, especially the creative ones. And with a lot of the pressure off, and there is a lot of pressure off in that game, yeah, that is a real fear for Rangers. And it doesn't help that, the 2 final games, they won't own up to this themselves, but many would have thought it's been a cakewalk. It's only Dundee. It's only Ross County. Well, that's already shown to be wrong, and it's going to be a tough one for Dundee. Joyous, and every Dundee fan will turn up there, possibly with the wellies on, has to be said, but they'll turn up there and they will have an absolute party, whatever happens, and that can go any way at all. For Rangers, if you don't win there, I'm afraid you don't win. You don't deserve to win the league. Full stop. Period. So there's the question for you that you need to answer.
We've got full coverage of Dundee against Rangers on Sportsound on Wednesday. You get highlights on Sportscene as well. And if you've missed the highlights of the Ross County Rangers game on Sportscene on Sunday evening, they are available on the iPlayer.
Here's Hatate with a chance. Oh, that's a fabulous finish from Reo Hatate. Real top drawer stuff from the Japanese midfielder.
Right, let's take a look back at Saturday's action and what was a potentially tricky game for Celtic. Certainly was at half-time against St Mirren. They ended up being pretty convincing winners in the end, Pat.
They were. It's one of those ones where it wasn't just Celtic Park. It was in various places around the country. The wind was a nightmare. I mean, the conditions were horrible to play in when you're trying to play the type of football you want to play. If you're a team that plays a passing game on the deck, moving it quickly. And the effect that had, and it's had it the week before as well, but you got to stick at it. And when the opportunities came, they took them. But it wasn't easy. There were moments. There were absolutely moments where it could have turned really quite ugly indeed. So I think they'll be delighted. I think right after the game, there was a few words from Brendan, and Brendan was saying, "You'd much rather have the points in the bag." Right, there we go. Turn that pressure gauge up. That's exactly what he was doing. And that's exactly what you should do if you're a manager. Now, whether that worked or not, who knows? But it was a tough one. St Mirren were always going to be tough, but in those conditions, I think it made it even harder for Celtic. And of course, now they've got 1 or 2 players missing that they would rather have on, but they've got bigger squad than anybody else probably, so they should be able to cope with it.
2 words for you, Pat. When it comes to Celtic, Reo Hatate. Yeah. He's made a massive difference to that Celtic team. He certainly did in the second half against St Mirren.
Do you know, sometimes you look at certain players and you're wanting energy levels and you're wanting commitment and you want a lot of quality as well. And it sounds as if I'm just describing him with that. That's exactly what you want with a certain player in those sort of positions. And it can go up and down with any player during the season, but, when McGregor's had less of an influence because of the injury and obviously being substituted, etc., you need people to stand up. It's really important that big players say, right, okay, we're missing the main man, we're missing the guy who controls this. I need to have a bigger impact on the game. And sometimes, and you don't want to own up to it, but some players grow into that and kind of like it. I mean, I've played in teams where you know who the main man is, right? And then when the main man's kind of not there, you kind of breathe a wee bit. You guys, okay, it's up to me now, much more. And some players grow into that. And certainly, Hatate's been good anyway this season, superb, and for the last couple of seasons. But he looks all right. He looks definitely okay and comfortable with that situation. He's not suffering with any pressure.
Yeah, he can make all the difference for Celtic, that's for sure. Richard, we touched on you guys at Motherwell and Hibs and Dundee. Those were the three teams with the chance to get into the top six. In the end, Shane Blaney's terrific equaliser for you guys against Hibs has managed to salvage a draw.
Oh, what a finish at Fir Park. Smash, back of the net, 1-1. What a finish. Shane Blaney, out of nothing. Ball bounces in the box, left foot volley into the back of the net. And Hibs' season's just falling apart in injury time.
But because of that goal and Dundee's draw at Pittodrie, it took it away from both yourselves and Hibernian. How big a blow, having been at Fir Park and being part of Motherwell and seeing the reaction from the Hibs players, was it for those two clubs? Because for Hibs in particular, the budget there and the movement that we saw in the January window as well, they must be absolutely devastated to not be in the top half of the table. I think it's fair to say that Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, these sides should be in the top half of the table.
Yeah, I think you stole half my answer there as soon as you mentioned budgets. I think in terms of Motherwell have got no right to be in the top six in terms of size of budget, and I think so in terms of that, you're right. Hibs, Aberdeen, Hearts, Rangers, Celtic, and a other are the teams to go into the top six. And if you want to just compare budgets, then we would be right down the bottom of the league. So to get ourselves into a position where you're fighting for that spot against Hibs, I know, but in Dundee as well, but against Hibs just shows you how well we've done this season to come back from, like I say, that kind of mid-season slump where we failed to win in a number of games. But to see how devastated the Hibs players were on the pitch, like I said, to a man, they were sat down, head between their legs, kind of just obviously incredibly disappointed because it's been a poor season from Hibs. It's been a tough season for Hibs. I know there's been a bit of change. You mentioned all those guys coming in January. That's sometimes not always a good thing. It takes time for players to gel and get to know each other. But in terms of the size of the club, the facilities they've got, the budget, Hibs are a team that the fans will expect them to be at least top six. Now, we're talking about Hibs. Hibs will be expecting to be challenging for the European spots, third, fourth in the league. They will not be accepting of a team who just dribble into the top six. For a team who've not even made the top six, I think they've had a real poor season. But for us, we looked at that, and because Dundee managed to get a point, and full credit to them, Pittodrie is not always an easy place to go. We just go, great point for us, and especially now after today's result with Ross County winning, that could turn out to be a huge point for us in terms of the last 5 games of the season. So we were disappointed. We were disappointed certainly because the whole day that was what we were gunning for. That's what we wanted. But Hibs were devastated.
Yeah, Pat, as a highbie yourself, of course, massively disappointing. How much pressure's on Nick Montgomery now?
Do you know, it's amazing in football how much difference a couple of seconds make. Had that 94th minute equaliser not gone in, the Hibs would have been in a real possible position where they would have been in the top six. Scraped in, yeah, grant you that, but you'd have been top six, and Nick would have said, yeah, we've got building blocks here, and all the usual cliches and tropes that you use in that situation, not been in a huge amount of time, trying to shape a team to be in his image. And do you know what? You take it because it takes a wee while to change a team around. It takes a little while to get players in and players out that you want, and them to settle into the game as well. I am one of these people. I'm not quick to shout for managers' heads. It's just I know how tough a job it is. I know that the very, very best ones are generally the ones that are not there for 9 months. They're the ones that are there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and are given an opportunity to build something. So, in my mind, he's still okay. He's done enough. I know not every Hibernian fan would feel exactly the same about it, and I would respect that. But you've got to give people opportunities, and I certainly hope there's no kind of knee-jerk reactions over the next wee while, just because they're not in the top 6.
I want to get a little word on Tony Docherty, Pat, and the job that he's done at Dundee, getting them into the top 6. He's stepped out of Derek McInnes' shadow. Probably doesn't like that phraseology, but he's done that, and he's taken Dundee into the top 6, having just bounced back into the top flight themselves under Gary Boyer last season. It's a fabulous achievement, is it not?
It certainly is. I look at, sometimes we want to watch teams and see if they can reflect who the manager is, what he's trying to do. Can you see what he's trying to do? There's a kind of real kind of confidence, kind of sometimes a wee bit of callousness about them now and again, which I kind of like, because you kind of have to have that. I like that. But there's been good enough fighting as well. At the moment, I have to say, there's quite a lot of teams in the league that are not very happy with Dundee, right? We all know this just now. And there's lots of talks about whether the money, the finances are being spent and should they have been spent in other places. But forget that for 1 second and think, have they been the team that's deserved it? Well, in simple terms, probably, yeah. You probably have, when that period of time. To come up for where they come from and then got to the top 6, you got to just stand there and applaud them. And hopefully that's very fair-minded of me, seeing as the Hibs only needed to lose one less goal and they could have been there themselves. Yes. You got to make magnanimous about this and say, well done. And Tony's done a great job with them, because every now and again you got to step out. And there have been many guys, they've been in coaching, they've been assistant managers, and you must wonder every time, am I the right person for it? And I've talked to lots of people, and a classic examples, Stevie Clark, talking to him for years when he was number 2. And I'm not sure he felt like he ever was the right personality for the number 1 job for a long time. I remember talking to him when he was at West Ham with Franco Zola. And I knew Gianfranco a wee bit as well. And in the company for 10 minutes, and I'm thinking, you've decided, mate. You've decided, you know you can do this, and you know you will do this. And eventually he did go on, and he's done very, very well in that situation. But that big leap is a leap. And it's a leap in the dark sometimes, because you've always had a crutch. So well done, Tony. Deserve it, mate.
Yeah, well done to Dundee. Absolutely. Fantastic job. It's unfair of me to ask Foz this question, so I'll ask you, Pat. Aberdeen and Motherwell, they're sitting just above the waterline right now. County have reeled St Johnstone in today. In many respects, they've reeled Aberdeen in as well. Motherwell are a few points better off. Are Aberdeen and Motherwell safe from that playoff place?
It'd be amazing. It'd be absolutely amazing if you were Motherwell and you went down, because for everyone to get enough points, remember there's only 15 points to play for. Not everyone's going to get them all, but it's not an impossibility. And until it's an impossibility, you can't relax, and you certainly can't let the players relax. You need to get everything. I have a suspicion that certainly for Motherwell, it's probably one win, and you're comfortable. That's okay. With Aberdeen, it might be 1 win and a draw, but you still need to get them. You can't go into a free fall in that situation. The biggest likelihood, and it's just honest, it's just the way it has been for most of the season, but also with the quality of players, etc. Just now, it probably will be between Ross County and St Johnstone, and it will end up being battling out between them two. And ask me who I would call from them. I would find it incredibly difficult. So yeah, Motherwell, I'm happy to see, with my history with that club as well, I am delighted that I think they're going to be all right this year, and I think there's enough good quality there. Aberdeen, just get yourself another point or two, would you, quickly? And the others have got a battle to the end.
It's going to be so interesting to see who goes where in the first game post-split. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Obviously, Hearts coming from 2-0 down against Livingston, who are just being pushed further into the abyss. Aberdeen drawing with Dundee. I think it's been 2 pretty unconvincing performances in their last 2 for Aberdeen at Livingston and then against Dundee on Saturday. But it's 4 games unbeaten under Peter Leven. Looking ahead to those Scottish Cup semi-finals, Richard, Aberdeen up against Celtic on Saturday, and then it's Hearts Rangers on the Sunday. Who comes through those 2, and do you give your old club Aberdeen any hope against the holders?
I certainly would love to. I genuinely would. I would love Aberdeen to get to themselves to the Scottish Cup final. The most important for them is staying in the league. Of course it is. I agree with Pat. A win and a draw, I think they'll be okay. So I would love them to be able to go and beat Celtic and get themselves to the cup final. I just can't see it, to be honest. I can't see it. I feel that they're really struggling with the lack of leadership. And I don't mean that as a slight on Peter leaving, not at all. I just mean that he's come out and openly said he doesn't want the job, which is fine. That's his prerogative. But the fact that it's taken so long to get another manager in, there's so much talk around when he'll be in, when he's going to come in, and when they wanted him in, and all the stuff with his old club. So I just think the lack of clarity is really taking its toll, and that can filter down into the players, and I think it has. And you kind of feel for them in that respect, because that's their job is on the pitch. And yes, we can agree they've not done well enough this season for a club of their size, but all the stuff off the pitch, they have no control over that, and it definitely has an impact. I know that was a long-winded answer, but I would love for them to win the semi-final, but I'm sorry to say I can't see it.
Jimmy Tellin is likely, it seems, to be their new manager. We were expecting an announcement on that appointment in the coming week, maybe early in the week. I just wonder if the sequence of results over the weekend might just push that back a little bit. The semi-final, of course, will be their full focus this week. They've been reeled back in by Ross County. We'll wait and see, but it does look as though Jimmy Tellin will be the new Aberdeen manager. And that's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Richard Foster and to Pat Nevin, and thank you for listening as well. Hopefully you are a regular listener. If you're not, you can subscribe at any time at the website, wherever you get your podcasts. We publish new episodes every weekday morning. We'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Sacked in the Morning is back.
I got the ball and I put it on the spot, and as I got up, it was literally the best feeling I've ever had. And believe me, I spent a lot of money on feelings in my life.
Joining Craig Levine and myself, Amy Irons, will be some of football's top managers, best characters and most colourful players as we reveal what exactly goes on inside the dugouts and dressing rooms up and down the country.
We had a lad the other week and I saw him, he was playing the first half, he was playing the opposite wing. He had a set of gloves on and short sleeves. And I thought to myself, I can't wait till next half till he comes near me.
As the manager comes in, he smashes the door open, the jacket's off, shirt sleeves are up. We're thinking, here we go. We're all nudging each other like school kids and giggling.
Sacked in the Morning. Listen now on BBC Sounds.